I'll call the meeting to order. I guess we'll stand for the pledge. Show that we are patriotic.
Yep.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Slow down, Jeff. You're getting ahead of yourself. Oh, did I just roll over you? You went over there. All right. Sorry. Okay.
A little too fast on the roll.
Did that. Now, can we even do the minutes? All right, first up is approval of minutes from the last time we met, which was February 21st, 2018.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from February 21st, 2018 as written.
Sounds like we're here, huh?
Yeah.
I know I missed one, but that's why we can even do it tonight.
No,
I
actually.
tell you what, we'll put these off until the end of the meeting to see if Paul shows up. I mean, Bev can vote, but.
I can't because I
No,
wasn't here.
yes, you actually can, but you weren't here, so if
Well,
Paul shows up
You
at
got,
7.
you got a quorum,
Yeah.
and as long as you have majority of the quorum, it can be passed, as long as the three members are here, Jeff.
Well, I was just gonna wait for Paul, just,
Okay,
no, okay, we'll just get it out
I'll
of
make
the
a
way.
motion to wait till the secretary comes here shortly. I know he's
Yeah,
coming late,
speaking of which,
for us to go over the meeting minutes.
I'll second it.
hold up. What did I do? Good thing you reminded me. I gotta do my secretary
Minutes?
stuff.
You're gonna, okay.
Minutes. What's today, April 4th?
I didn't hear it, was
2018.
I don't know why, but he did get it.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
They just passed a $3 million increase in the
Wednesday.
district school.
Yeah, 1.5 on each side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked that $56 million budget.
Yeah.
That's it.
I read those things in the paper in the morning, and I'm like, I bet you Will's looking at this. The regional school thing.
Okay,
Yeah, the telegram?
Yeah.
I read the Athol too.
Yep, me too. Yeah,
With the new format, you can.
I know. That's why I do.
all right, we will,
Gotta get to the Winchton and Courier though.
We used to print it once a week.
end of meeting. Okay, the next thing is, additional meeting dates. Because of combination of snowstorms, which forced joint meetings, budget hearings to be canceled and moved on, and we should have the warrant by next Tuesday, the 10th.
I think we, Mr. Chairman, I think we need to actually, because of all of that, plus the fact that,
And the annual town meeting's on the 12th, so we
Right.
don't have,
I thought it was on the 19th.
is it on 19th? Maybe it is.
I could be wrong. I thought they said, thought they said the 19th.
I thought they did too.
I've seen both.
I
Have you seen it? Both?
Let me,
It says May 12th,
Okay.
let me double check here real quick.
but I believe it says May 19th on the town website.
I thought that's what it was.
How can it be?
It's a week apart,
Hey,
half a meeting.
No, I mean, how can it be
yeah, it can't be,
2 days?
well, it could be.
I would have thought that, if people looked at the town website and they thought that was the date of the annual town meeting, they probably wouldn't show up on the 12th. It's bad enough we can't get enough people in.
It should be right up at the top, if it's the same as the,
Okay, the election is the 7th.
Yeah, I think we need to take it in, expanding to weekly, or maybe the closer we get till the end of April, probably a couple times during the week.
Be a week, but
I anticipate a lot of discussion, or hopefully there's a lot of discussion on some proposals for the budget.
the May 19th annual town meeting,
Is it?
that's what it says.
Well, how come?
Tuesday, 17th is the last day to register to vote in the May 7th election and May 19th
town
annual
website?
town meeting.
No, I don't.
You know what I bet that was? Yeah, somebody goofed. Because whatever day the election is on, it's usually like a 2-week. It's not that same week. Like the election is this week and then the town meeting is the following week.
Yeah,
So it's gotta be the 19th, because I've never seen it in the same week.
no, it's,
So, like I said, if the election's on one Monday, it's the following
Right,
week,
right.
whatever the day, if it's weekday.
because I believe the selectmen meet on the 7th after the election to reorganize.
Well, they'll meet the following Monday, because the election's on the 7th,
It
May
is
7th.
on the 7th.
yes. So, they will meet to reorganize, they should, on May 14th, and show up for town meeting, so, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's listed on the website as the 19th.
Well, how come the warrant says the 12th?
yeah, this does.
Like I said, I think somebody
Yeah.
looked at the calendar and
Got the wrong month.
that's just got the date mixed up. I can't say much because I do it a lot myself. So,
Well, the 19th's better than the 12th.
Yeah, I got that one, it says the 12th. It's,
meeting days.
Hmm.
Let me look at the calendar, the town calendar. And see what's open. I think there's a bunch of Thursdays.
Will, what date was the budget, did the budget come?
Huh?
What date was that?
March 21st.
March 21st?
I know I'm not Will, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the 11th, there's nothing showing Wednesday for this room. Both Thursdays are taken up. We have a regularly scheduled meeting on the 18th. Thursday, the 19th, is showing empty right now.
I can come anytime, pretty much.
And April 25th is Wednesday, and the 26th, which is the Thursday. They're all showing empty right now.
right,
So, we could meet on the 11th. We're meeting on the 18th. We could potentially meet on the 18th, the 19th, the 25th, the 26th. So let's see. We have April 11th, the 18th, the 19th, 25th, 26th. We have a regular meeting on May 3rd.
going into May, Mr. Chairman, we meet right at the beginning of May,
That's why I said May 2nd.
May 2nd. That would probably be the time that, I know this is jumping ahead, that might be the time to end up having the pre-town meeting.
So that's like 2 weeks out.
And that gives us about 2 weeks, which if we have the pre-town and vote on the articles and the budget at that particular time,
If I can get all these dates, if we can get all these open dates,
Do it. There's a lot of work to do.
so that would give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and, May 2nd, sorry. So, May 2nd, we could do, the pre-town. Because we'll have to get the advertising in and all that.
that would give us the following Wednesday,
Which is showing open right now.
once we have the pre-town voted on it, and there's the, any document you have to get out would be, that's on the 9th, that'd give us, 7, 8, 9, that'd give us 10 days before.
Yeah, we have to have our votes and our recommendations. They gotta be, done, a minimum be 2 days before
2 days before.
town meeting. So, if we did it on the 2nd, have all our recommendations, then we could work on like a write-up. And we would have the 9th and the 16th, potentially. Because the 16th is our regular scheduled meeting. So we could meet on the 9th and have something together,
Yep.
so. Okay, so, alternative meeting days, like I said, I'm just going at the calendar right now and they're empty, so, it'd be the 11th, the 18th is a regular meeting. So we would have April 11th, the 19th, the 25th, and the 26th. And then our regular meetings.
11th, 18th, 19th, 26th, and what?
25th.
Okay, April
25th and
11th,
26th?
April 18th is our regular scheduled meeting.
Okay,
But the other days would be April 11th, it would be April 18th, April 19th, April 25th, and April 26th. The 11th is a Wednesday, the 18th of April is a Wednesday, the 19th is a Thursday, the 25th is a Wednesday, the 26th is a Thursday. And then our regular meeting on May 2nd is a Wednesday. And we could potentially ask for May 9th, which is a Wednesday. So, if those dates work.
Yep.
I mean, I can send an email into AM and ask for them.
do you
Schedule.
need that as a motion, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah,
So move.
Second.
okay. Let's see. Okay, a motion for additional meeting days and dates for April 11th, the 19th, the 25th, the 26th, and May 9th.
Yep.
Motion has been made and it was seconded. Any further discussion?
No.
Sorry, people, you ain't here, you snooze, you lose, you know how the deal goes. Okay, on the motion, Bev,
Yes.
Will,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
and yes. Okay.
Do you need a motion for the pre-town also, Mr. Chairman? For the second?
Yep, pre-town. Okay, with regards to the pre-town for May 2nd? Okay.
So moved.
Second.
6 PM?
6 PM.
That'll give us plenty of time, hopefully.
Okay. Okay, our pre-town meeting,
And that would be held here, Mr. Chairman?
a regular scheduled meeting
On the second, it would be here?
here at Town Hall.
Okay.
Town Hall Conference Room.
The notice going into the paper would have to happen
Like,
either the 27th to 28th.
yeah,
It usually goes in the Saturday before.
so. Yeah, so I will have to send this email out. Probably when I get home, email. Probably,
Now, are we required by, excuse me, are we required by law to notify through the paper, specifically through the local newspaper?
Yes.
Okay, there's
Yeah.
not just a local notification.
has to be a paper with circulation of blah, blah, blah. You can actually do it in the Worcester Telegram if you wanted to, but.
I was just wondering if you can do it online, since this publication's there. Just,
Well, not everybody has a computer still.
Okay,
I don't
so,
get the paper.
I have a motion and a second for the pre-town meeting on May 2nd, 2018, 6 PM. That's a Wednesday, Town Hall Conference Room, right, sitting right here at this table.
Yep.
Any discussion? No? Bev,
Yes.
Will,
Yes.
Bob,
yes.
yes. Okay. All right. The next thing on the agenda is, and I'll have to check, because it sounded like, I don't know if they got it done, because I believe Tuesday was the date, I believe it was Tuesday, was the deadline to get it on the ballot for May 7th. Because if it was on the ballot, if you get it on the ballot for this election and the override passes,
In the hole, excuse me.
then, at town meeting, they could appropriate the money, because it wouldn't be a contingency article. If they didn't get the deadline and it's not on the ballot, then at town meeting, they would have to do a contingency vote and get it on the state ballot in November. And that has to be done, first week or something in August. But that's cutting it really tight, so I'll email Carter to check. I know they planned, he had talked about if they could decide on an amount and everything and get it on the ballot for May 7th.
It sounds like they had set that override as one override.
Yes, they dumped it up to, from 60 to 75 cents.
There's a big risk on that, I think.
But the bigger thing is, and they talked about it at the public hearing and even at the budget subcommittee meeting and stuff. If you ask for a small override and you don't get exactly what you need, then you're gonna have to come back, even with the budget, even with the compromise the school did, because they went from like a 4.12 or 1.5, which would have been, well, if 2.8 was 500,000, that would have been probably 7 or so. So then they dropped down to a 1.8, which meant the town has to come up with a little bit and the school come up with a little less. I'm expecting an override for the school next year, a big one. They're gonna be looking for a lot of money. They just-
Right, I watched that whole process, and my thoughts were that, yes, you've made a concession this year, but you're gonna ask for, because of the way you took the money from, you will be asking for another override next year.
And, and that would be mostly to fund the school. Now, the debate is what to call it. You know, an override for the school, or is an override for the town budget?
Gonna have to put it as both,
Well, no, you could put it at the general fund,
yeah.
and, which would put more money in the general fund, which, then you can set more money aside for. It's how you word it, it's a play on words, cause you have your tax levy limit, and the town spends the whole levy limit. We ain't below the levy at all, we
No.
always spend every penny
Right,
that we get our hands on, it's just because for a
We
lot, for a lot of,
always have.
lot of reasons, it's.
we're
they
close
just-
to the ceiling, the levy ceiling.
Some towns don't though, some
I
towns
know.
have room and they can go up 6%, you know? People say, you can't do that, well, yeah, you can. If you got $10 million you raise in taxes, then you only spend 6 million?
Yep.
You know, you come to a year like, hey, we need, you know, $500,000 for the school, well, we'll just go up 2% on it, you know, we'll use more of our levy.
Yep.
Uh,
I'm surprised that the school committee didn't put it forth as, they would ask for an override, because looking at some other school committees and districts, actually, the school committees for those districts actually voted for, that they can end up keeping the budget as it is, or actually submitting for an override. By submitting the budget the way they did, that's the budget, and there is nothing for an override, so it's on the town to end up doing the override for the additional monies that they need to pay the school.
Well, that extra 140, 60, whatever it turns out it was finalized to be, it was proposed to be 145 each side, but I think it worked out to be a little bit more. But at the budget subcommittee meeting, it was talked about, and the school, the people on the budget subcommittee, they didn't think they should have to put out an override for the school, so it's everybody, badmouth, oh, the school looking for more money. They thought that it should be a town general fund override. And of course, the selectmen that were there, or basically the town administrator, and the selectmen later on at a meeting, they didn't think, they didn't wanna ask for an override for the town. Well, because it's, and I'm just repeating what was said from this table. If you tell the people, well, we just need more money to run the government, it's likely to fail. I don't think that way, but, anyways, that they didn't do an override for the school this year. It was gonna, and I think that's one of the reasons why they bumped up the override, so they don't have to cut, they're trying to avoid to cut out more out of the town budget to fund the school. They're just gonna try to get the money that they need. And they bumped up. And the same thing happened at the public hearing, where it's the same thing, the fire department and the ambulance people that were here. They don't think it should be an override for the fire department, they wanted it for, because they don't wanna be seen as the bad guys. But
Well, you can't
in
have it all.
effect, that's what the override is needed for, more money to fund that service. Again, it goes back to semantics, in my opinion, that the town budget, it just needs an influx of money. So, and essentially, all of these bills that are getting paid from the taxpayers, you just need more money to fund them, or things gotta go away. The school is a bill of the town, so the school's asking for more money. I mean, you couldn't go for an override just for the school, and what we did in 13, and it goes directly to the school
Right.
for the first year. And then the next year, it just gets thrown into the pile that the town has to divide up. And in theory, you add it to the pile, so there should be enough to cover that increase, except when things go up more, and that gets eaten up, and then it's a never-ending battle. But anyway, at the budget subcommittee meeting, they were hesitant to do an override for the school. The school committee sounded like they didn't want to put another override through just for the school. They thought the town should do it because the town needs more money to pay things. I wasn't at the meeting Monday past. I'm gonna watch it. I'll probably watch it a couple, 3 times. But they changed from the 60 cents that they seem stuck on, because they, again, we think that will pass. But people are getting tired of, you ask them for more money this year, and you turn around and you ask them for more money next year. It's like, why don't you just ask for what you either need or want
Because there's
one
no
time,
end.
to one time?
There's no ceiling, Jeffrey.
No, if you ask for 60 cents this year, Bev, and then you're gonna have to turn around next year and ask for another 60
Well, then
cents.
you're wrong by doing that because it's deceiving.
Well, that's why. Ask for what you need. If you think you need $1, ask for $1. Don't come back and, it's like,
Nickel and dime it to death.
yeah, they just, why don't you ask for what you need or
Have a
want at
justifiable-
one time? And make your case, and give them an opportunity, because nobody knows if it's gonna pay. You can't say, oh, people ain't gonna vote for this. If you don't ask them, how do you know?
At least they have the opportunity
Well, if the
to
citizens of this
decide.
community see it as an override for either of those departments, and it's for government. You can cut it how you want.
Yeah.
And they also turn around and look at the budget themselves and see $40,000 in raises. That raises to me a red flag, and people saying, you want more money, but you have given out raises in 16, 17, and 18, and now you want to end up giving $40,000 in 19, and you're asking for an override.
Some of that money, and this has been pointed out before, some of that money is to cover agreements that they signed 2 years ago. Some of them things are in there. If you get a license for one department, there's a 4%, there's a big jump in there. It's built in when they sign that document, not thinking ahead, in my opinion, or not thinking about how you're gonna pay for that. Health insurance went up 7-something%. They're talking about going to a 65-35 split. The law says you only have to pay 50%, but
Yeah, because that's the thing, is if there was some attempt to make some changes, I think people would feel more comfortable. You got old people that got 0.2%, or 0.02%. What the heck is that? And so you have a mixed community here. We have a lot of elderly. They're the ones I worry about. But I also worry about the young people. Because they came and they bought a nice house. They can make the payments. When they can't make the payments, then we get a problem.
it's surprising. I went and looked at the income and the ages of, the population and stuff. But somebody mentioned it, an older guy, gentleman at a meeting, he said he looked it up, and I'm going, I just can't, that don't sound right. I went and looked. The DOR, by information provided by census and other things. The average income in Templeton is like 70 grand a year.
Household,
Yeah, not per
person,
Not per
household.
person, but per capita is, you take the whole population and average it out,
Mm.
and it drops down to like 20-something thousand
It's
a year.
not a pretty picture.
But that's per capita, that's counting every resident of the
Don't
town,
matter.
whether they work or not. But if you're not working,
Well,
what,
if you're not working, you're only collecting what you were able to collect when you got done working.
no, see, the per capita thing is you take every resident
Okay,
in
and you
town.
divide it up.
You count
All right, I
everybody.
understand now.
That's kids, that's everybody.
Yeah.
That's per capita. But the average
Mm.
household income is 70 grand a year. I was
Can,
I was
can somebody
surprised.
step up and given me all the monies to get to the average? My wife and I would really like to take it, end
Well,
up getting,
I'm not a member of that average, but I'm just looking at the numbers, I'm going,
I've looked through a bunch of numbers from different places and from the state and from the feds and so forth. And for an actual average for incomes here, the best number I could come up with is 37,000 a year for the average employee in Templeton. And, that throws, for me, that throws the whole equation of what our tax rate is, as a portion of income from what was stated at the meetings, all to hell. Because if you're at 37, and you're on a $200,000 home, you're closer to 8% or 10% of your income than you are to that 3 or 4 number that
yeah.
is presented.
even the average
Yeah.
income for the nation is around $40,000. I view us as a little under average. I'm not saying we're in poverty, but,
And the state average, I think, is 75 on
Yeah.
that particular website that I went with.
well,
The median age in town is, I was surprised, it's under 60.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I mean, I'll admit, when I went knocking on doors, I run into a lot of, to younger people than I expected. I had 50 houses, I mean, it was only, because not everybody was, would sign or was a voter or just knew, there was a couple few people, I just moved here from Stowe, I said, oh, you're downgrading, huh? But, whatever, like I said, it's, a lot of it, I think, is semantics. It's, because when you do, when the town applies for a community block development grant, income-wise and everything, we get thrown in with lemon stuff for some reason. The guy that, I can't remember his name, from COG, Community Opportunities Group, I don't think they're in town anymore, but he explained it a couple of times, and I can't remember how we get in there. And it affects us negatively because it doesn't truly show, the income and all of this stuff, the value of, because we're tossed into this thing. Yet, when you look up Narragansett Regional School District on the wealth factor on the DESE website, it's like one of the poorest districts in the state. Maybe that's because, maybe that goes by their budget or whatever factor they look at.
I'll give you my 2 cents worth right here on that whole thing, okay? My whole 2 cents worth on that is that the way they do the census, poor people don't respond. Because poor people don't have stamps, simple thing like that. Poor people don't have stamps available to them to send the thing back to the town because everyone requires a return postage. It requires them to do something other than just sign it and send it back. I think that's part of the reason.
But, no matter the, whatever that is.
I was
Of course,
amazed
there's people that have, that are eligible for abatements and stuff that I know don't apply. The work-off program, and then again, maybe some people like to do it, but maybe they don't have a way, they don't wanna ask. I mean, there can be a lot of reasons, but, that's what the overlay fund is there for, to take care of, people who say, hey, I need an abatement for this, and if you're up there in your 60s and stuff, it doesn't take much to get that abatement done. But I know people don't apply for it.
I just had one question that was to clarify what we were talking about earlier with the overrides. It's my understanding if the school goes for the override and the override fails, the school just doesn't get the money. If the town goes for the override and the override fails, the town still has to pay the money to the school.
That's right.
So there is a difference in how we go about it, as far as the action on the town.
If the school asks for an override to cover whatever budget that they certify, And the town says, you know, well, we're asking for an override, you know. And if it fails, like in the 2013, if the override would've failed, the selectmen we were gonna have to come up with $505,000 somewhere. I know they came up, no, 550 something. Cause 505 was what the town basically shut down, laid just about everybody off for 7 weeks to
Yep.
cover 500 grand. So that's what we would've been faced with doing if that override in 13 would've failed. Yeah, the budget, whatever the budget is certified, and the school committee says, well, you know, why don't you do an override, and they propose an override to pay for that. They have a choice. The school committee can meet and recertify a lower budget number. So they
Right.
can cut if they want to. But if they think, they're like anybody else, if they think they've cut enough, then they're just not gonna go no lower. And they're gonna say, no, this is what we get. And the law favors regional school districts. Then you have the option, when you have that joint meeting, you can go all the way. The state will come in, and I've heard two sides. I know I have read and seen documentation on towns that have gone all the way to the state, the DESE taking over, coming in. They look at the school budget books, they look at the towns, and both sides had to give a little bit. You know, the school didn't get everything they wanted to, and the town, you know, basically what was done at the subcommittee. The school, you know, they get told, you're looking for $1 million, no, you're getting 700,000. The town's looking for this much, no, you're gonna pay, you know, another 300,000. That's the way it happens. It doesn't automatically, you know, it doesn't automatically mean the school's gonna get everything they ask for, because it just hasn't worked out that way in every case. And you don't know until you do it. But if they do it, then they just say, oh yeah, you're gonna pay them, and, you know, it's like this, like the DOR coming in. They set your tax rate and say, this is what your tax rate is gonna be to pay all your bills. You got no say for it.
What surprised me was the fact that our school district for our new building got 60% roughly. Athol just passed a $10 million for their school to rehab their regional high school, their Athol. They're getting from the
It's going up, it's like
MSBA?
82%.
79%.
Yeah, I think 80 or 82% is the max you can get now. But they've changed that for, you know,
And my understanding was that when they go that high, it tends to end up, especially to rehab a whole building. I'm surprised that we didn't, as a community, look at that.
I don't think they did. I don't think they didn't want to rehab any schools. I do know that Ashburnham looked at rehabbing the Briggs School. They looked at, when they did their feasibility study, actually looked at rehabbing the existing building, rehabbing it and adding on and building a new one. Rehabbing the existing and just adding on to it was like $2.5 million less than building a whole brand new building. So, and Athol may be just rehabbing their regional high school, because they just built a new elementary school, and that's, you know, they already got that big bond payment on there. You throw another one on there. So,
Well,
so like I said, I believe the override is at 75 cents. $1 on the tax rate raises 622,000,
And change,
I think it's,
800, almost 800.
I think it's 471 or 571, something, anyways, 622 and change.
Yeah.
That's what, right now, that's what $1 raises. Valuations shouldn't change,
excuse me. Hey,
valuations shouldn't change for, because now they're on the 5-year cycle instead of the 3-year cycle. So, that dollar figure shouldn't really be moving much. other than like the, you know, the 2.5% that the thing is gonna go
Yeah.
up, cause they don't reval. It's, and I think last year they reval, so yeah, it's like 4 years till they reval again.
All right, so they figured on, what, $2 for the school?
Eventually, that'll probably be
If-
around that.
Whatever a dollar's gonna raise per thousand, when that bond is actually put out there, will determine what it will be.
And so the. if
Based
this
on
is-
the information they had back in 15, a dollar raised 556,000 and some change. And they took the $1.74 plus the 52 cents from the high school loan, and that base comes up to about 226, I think, 225.
Right, now, one from the school, as far as the roof, because they extended it, that's not gonna go away in the time frame that they had initially said.
Well, no, this is the last, fiscal 19 is the last year. It should have been off the books in 16, but 12 or 13, I think it was in 13, the district redid some of their debt. And that extended out those bond payments for another 3 years. But this fiscal 19, starting July 1st, this is the last year we have that 466,446, something like that, payment to be made. Because we paid it 3 years longer than was that initially was
Yep.
made because they redid their,
I don't know how
of
they
their
can do
debt
that.
stuff.
Amazing. So if you're talking 226 and then this override, if that goes
Well,
through, would
that's-
come to what?
See, that 226 is based on, the 556. This, right now, it's 622, and they said, they estimated back then that it would be a $1.4 million per year payment. So right now, it's 622, so that's $2 would be $1,200,000 and change. 44,000, I think, something like that.
Well, I'm not a
When they
great,
finally borrow that money, you're not gonna know what's gonna cost until they borrow the money and they come up with the thing. I mean, right now, if you have a $1.4 million bond payment, $2 on the tax rate ain't gonna raise the 1.4. So, but this override right here is 75 cents, and I believe it's $400 and something thousand they believe it will
I
raise,
think he has it at 470 on the
I think.
Administrator's Weekly Report.
So I think that's the number that's gonna be raising, and they're looking that will cover the ambulance, which was at 370. And it says it's gonna cover the school, but it doesn't. They're still gonna have to fudge some money here and there. Because town has to come up with at least 145, 135.
Yeah, it was, I believe it was 135, and then 45,000 was coming from the overlay, and 92,000 was what we had to
Right.
add.
So if the override money, and they still have to fudge some money from someplace to get that total to that budget. Next year, there shouldn't be the snafu. They should know in January what Monty Tech will be charging the town, because Monty Tech has changed the date, the timeline of when they're gonna put their
Budget
assessments
together.
out to towns. Thank you, Mayor Hawk.
a lot of
Yeah.
communities have moved it up. If you look at a lot of communities, other than ours, they actually had the school budget by the middle of February.
Yes.
And some even as earlier than that.
In January, I know, Winchendon has it a guesstimate budget out there, in January. March 30th is the deadline. That's the law, so you have until the 30th. If you wanna take till the 30th, you can take till the 30th. But next year, like I said, Monty Tech has moved their timeline to follow their regional agreement. And it's gonna be, it's no longer gonna be, they said they're redoing it, and it's not gonna be waiting until February, so that'd be one less surprise that, if you start doing your budget in December, you should know Monty Tech's number. This is what the assessment is, because they're gonna do they've stated they're gonna do it early, they've revamped their thing. So, with regards to the budget cuts, and, like I said, I believe the town administrator is working up both scenarios. For the warrant, to have to us April 9th or April 10th. April 10th is the drop dead date.
Yep.
I don't expect it before then. If you get it on the 9th, I'd be
And that's,
surprised,
a number of years we gave that, the town gave them additional week or two, because it used to be March, the end of March, and they moved it up till the April 10th because of the issues with getting the budget to have it finalized.
So, but the override is, like I said, if they got it voted on, and like I said, the paperwork sounds like they did it, it'll be on the ballot, and if it passes, this is an interesting thing about an override. You can pass the override, and it doesn't mean you have to, you don't have to appropriate the money. You would still have to pay those bills, but you don't have to appropriate. I was looking at that, I was reading DOR, and checking up on some rules and stuff, and, yeah, if it passes, but just because you have it, so it's like having money in your pocket, just because you got it in your pocket
Well,
doesn't mean you have to
one of the
spend
things
it.
that
You still have to pay that bill.
Yeah.
But, so there's
One-
other ways to,
One of the things I ran into was that, believe it or not, the town, at the annual town meeting, can vote this budget down, period. And that forces the administration to go back and redo the budget. That has happened in the past in other communities.
well, we did it in 2012.
Yeah, I mean, you actually reject the budget, and you are forced to,
Recess town meeting, and
and they have to end up adjusting the budget per se. So the community actually has that.
they have a lot of power at the community, at town meeting.
But
Right.
if they don't go, they don't have any power at all, 'cause
Well,
you
that's,
just give it up.
that's, no, what we're talking is if,
Yeah,
even the people who show up can do this.
Yeah.
There could be 40 people there, and 30 of them say no to the
That's right.
budget number. What are we gonna do now?
yeah, go back to
Recess
the
town
drawing
meeting
board.
and go and redo your numbers. Why are you rejecting it? Because we see $40,000 in raises. But it's hard to see because you don't see the line item anymore.
I know
And if
that.
you don't go online, that's the thing. You have to take the time to go look at the stuff and read through it. And I don't wanna put words in people's mouths, but I'm betting dollars to donuts that a lot of people don't take the time to really read that through.
No.
Or if they do, they see a
Because-
number, then they just go,
Because one of the things I want to just point out is that, looking at the budget as it stands now, you would expect most communities, say, level fund, 1%, 2.5%, up or down or whatever. But then I start looking at the proposed budget that we have given us thus far, and I see selectmen, 13.4% increase. IT and communications, 32% increase.
That's a big increase.
well, some of that is,
Some of it is updating stuff, I understand
and
that.
they're actually,
But consolidating too,
Yeah,
the buying through.
they're actually saving
IT.
some money
Finally.
in the long run. I
finally.
mean, they ain't quite got there yet, but baby steps,
Mhm.
baby steps.
But then
But,
I see this portion on the other side is
Recreation and culture, minus 34.5%. Fire department, minus 22.7%.
How did they figure that one?
If I'm not mistaken, some of those items are capital items. that-
Okay.
They have been
Development
removed from the
services.
capital.
Okay,
Development services, minus 12.4%.
But I know the IT thing and stuff was,
I understand that.
they're
That's
doing,
stuff that
like I
they
said,
have to
it's
do.
baby steps, but they actually are doing a couple of things.
So everybody's on the same page?
Well, like that Office 365 thing, now that will be everybody, it'll be on everybody's thing, and when they get updates, it'll be updated, and it's coming from one place. And it's cutting down on this, well, I'll get this version,
Repetition,
I'll get
yeah.
that version. And
Just,
you take a little bit, they need to start taking a little bit from these office expenses, and one person, one place. And it's not that we don't trust you, this or that, but it's to stop all this
And one person's responsible
buying
too.
more than you
well,
need.
that's what they're
and-
starting to do with the copiers too. They're putting them all into one contract, so
Yeah.
that they're not, each department is getting their own, so everybody's paying top dollar. So hopefully,
Yeah.
over time, and they were talking about that, it was asked during the budget process about the cell phones in town, the same thing. We don't have a town contract for the cell phones, but that
Yeah.
is,
There's
it's,
a lot of competition now.
well, there's one of those
Save
things
some
that it's,
money.
in practice, it just hasn't been on the top
Yeah.
of the list, because we
Yeah,
have a
it's-
long list.
Well,
Yeah,
when
it's been talked about before and mentioned.
When they
but
moved
as
into
you
this
say, just-
building, they went to the electronic telephone system, where you can take the telephone, move it anywhere, and it'll dial to that one. But there's departments that continue to keep their 939 number.
It's the same thing back in 12 or 13, when Jeff Ritter tried to
Get
get
them,
central
yeah.
purchasing. Some departments jumped right on it, said, yeah, that's a great idea, yeah, it'll save money, no problem. Other departments, oh, hell no, you ain't touching my office expense, no, I ain't doing, and it was like, what if the selectmen just, and then again, you have 5 people and they don't wanna be the managers and tell them, no, this is how we're doing it. There were 4 people sitting at the table, one was absent, but who was in favor of it, and you couldn't get, there wasn't a majority to force the employees,
To do that job.
this is not their job, but this is how it's gonna be done,
Well, if that,
you know?
yeah, if you're
It's
the boss
that
and you tell
type of
them this
thing.
is what you're doing, you do it.
You can be a nice, boss, you don't have to go in and say, look, asshole, this is how the F is, no, you just say, look, this is
Yeah.
how it's gonna be, because the money, the funding, blah, 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 long-term, it makes sense, so, just wrap your head around it right now, cause that's how it's gonna happen, but cause I saw that IT thing and stuff, and then, as they kind of explained a few things, especially like the Office thing, now not everybody's gonna be, well, I'm gonna get Office 10, I'm gonna get Office 13, and somebody else is still using, I don't know, 7 or whatever, and,
Yeah.
oh, we're gonna get this, we're gonna buy some new laptops out of
Yeah, that's been a problem. I mean, in any, even in the business world, by the way, you run into that
Yeah.
because when I worked in the private sector, we ran into that because I would end up getting documents that somebody had gotten an upgrade in Microsoft Office as a whole, and they had higher versions. And when they would send it to me,
You couldn't open it.
I couldn't open it. It was unreadable.
Yeah. And they spend, and doing that individually,
Costs a lot of
this
money.
guy's spending, $500 to upgrade, and then this one does it. Well, you could get one thing for, $800.
Yeah.
And hopefully, of course, it true is a Microsoft thing, it's a continuing sell. Because, you spend $1,000 each year. I mean, you no longer go buy this and use this version for as long as it's supported, and then have to go buy another one. Now it's just like, they charge you like a rental fee.
Yep.
But everybody will be, and they're only paying it, it's central,
Yep.
which I liked.
Mm.
So, it's a lot of little things, which eventually will add up, it's just not happening. And there's some bigger things that I think could be tackled in a different way, but I know that's, the override, it's for ambulance and this and that, like I said, if it's on the, if it gets on the May ballot and it passes, then you just go to town meeting and just, the budget will change, cause they will add this and this, that, cause they will have the funding. But if it doesn't, then it will be, a contingency appropriation. And generally, in the past, it is passed at town meeting, then you gamble on the election in November. And if it fails in November, then you gotta really do some shuffling in the middle of the year,
Mhm.
which is, I've been there, done that, and it's not fun.
That's
But,
where you end up closing down.
you know, but,
half the town.
I mean, it's not fun doing it even in, you know, May,
Mm.
but, so. So like I said, any of the budget cuts and stuff can happen, depending on what the override is. Which, as Bob said, I think is like at 470. And I would bet there will be another one, a larger one next year. I wish it would have been a bigger one.
Yeah, I think that's very, very, very bad,
Uh,
you know?
I also offered up the opinion they could try like a pyramid one, give people options, but that was met with like, the hell are you talking about?
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
we've talked about in past years about doing that.
Mm.
And other communities do it, and it works. Whichever one gets the most votes. And it's not always the lower one that passes, but, you know, it's like taxes. Nobody, you know, it's why I shop in New Hampshire, but
Well,
it just, I'm serious.
Arlington's
Okay.
advisor or finance committee chairman has gone to a number of the association annual meetings and said that Arlington basically has told the community, from annual town meeting, that they will have to do a small override about every 3 years. And they're a much wealthier place than us,
Yeah, they,
and that gets a lot of pushback too.
yeah, well, I said that same thing a few years ago when I stated I thought the town needed like $1 million override right now to fix a lot of things, and then 3 years, no more than 5 years, you're gonna have to do,
We have
You know,
gone through this every 3 or 4
small
years
years.
since the 70s. We're always in the spot.
I don't, see-
You
I don't
never
see
get
how
out of it.
without changing the way the school is funded, that we're ever gonna get out of
I
it,
know.
because it's just the way it.
well, that is
Hmm.
speaking of that is turned into kind of a pet thing of mine, and I wanna try to get some traction on it. From the, state senate, Ann Goby's office, actually, they're trying to get, I was told the number was 86 million for the transportation for the 58 regional school districts. Because if you look in the budget stuff, the sheet was handed out at, I think, the last meeting, if you was at the selectmen's meeting. But I have it, and I'll make copies and bring it. But the busing costs that Templeton has to pick up, because unlike Gardner, they don't have to bus 7th through 8th, I think. They only have to bus up to the 6th grade. A regional school district, because
Yep.
it's
Spread out.
all spread out all over the place, they have to bus everybody. They got no choice. It's written into the law. The state is supposed to pay for all of that. They never have, not since 1949. And I was told that it would be like $86 million is what's needed to reimburse the 58 regional school districts, all the towns, so they wouldn't have, or the districts, to cover the transportation. Because whatever the district has not been funded 100% since 1949. They're shooting to try to get that 72 million, which again is not, it's not 100%. So the town gets charged that extra money. So you not only pay for the teaching, you know, the basic education and all that stuff, but if you look on there, there's like another item, it's transportation. And it ain't $50.
No, I
It's
can
hundreds of
imagine it's
thousands
not.
of dollars that takes away from what the town would have to spend on other things. I believe if you look at the number, it's, I think it's almost double what this override is.
Oh, I was gonna say, I thought the unpaid amount was like 300,000. I thought the
Something like
difference
that.
between the 72 and the 100.
But, whatever the, but that's a chunk of money that the town has to shell out in addition to the school assessment for, you know, all of the other stuff. And that takes a chunk out of the town budget. You know, cause it's like, you know, you go to the grocery store and it's like $100 and then, oh, you're gonna use the cart? Well, I got 10
50
bags.
for the
Well,
bag,
well, that's
50
an
for
extra
bag.
$20.
Yeah.
Well,
You know, I mean,
I'm anticipating that we're going to be, the state is going to be in problems come November. Why do I say that? And you're talking about reimbursement for monies.
Yep.
On the ballot question for November is reducing the sales tax from 6.25% back to 5%. If the voters vote for 5%, that means less money is coming into the coffers. That means less money is going to be end up issuing to the communities. That could be a big impact to us as well as other communities in the overall budget, no matter what we pass here.
I thought that the state was having trouble collecting money as it is. When are you getting paid?
I don't know.
July, maybe?
Uncle Sam's
Yeah.
got plenty of money.
That's the thing, is when, what's happened to us in the past is that the state has cut local aid. And that cuts your feet right out from under your body, because that's what we depend on to run this town.
That's
is
why I
local
brought
aid.
it up, Ed,
Yeah.
is that
You're
if the
right.
sales tax get cut, local aid is gonna get cut.
Yeah.
It just has to happen.
Well, because they're not gonna cut their big projects. But actually, I've looked at the unrestricted general government aid. It hasn't increased by the amounts that cities and towns, through the Mass Municipal Association and stuff have asked for. But Templeton's hasn't gone down in quite a while, but it hasn't, it hasn't kept up. It's almost like just marking time, because the increase in the cost, the town's cost and stuff, and the amount that the general aid goes up,
Cause I know
it's
that's what
it's like the
happened to us.
it's like the chapter 90 money. It's one of those things, a lot of it gets spent east of 495, and the MMA pushing for 400 million, the governor, the state house, they just keep
Shoveling
sending
money.
200 million. And, like I said, I think, I'd like to see people, the town, come election time this year, if you don't get the busing money, all of it, 100%, who's ever up for election, we just don't vote for them. And they lose, they don't get Templeton. They're not gonna maybe throw them out of the office, but that's the only way that's gonna change. But it does, like I said, they're supposed to cover 100% of busing, they don't. And there's a chunk of money that comes out of the town budget in addition to the school assessment, and again, that hurts the town. It's just like the chapter 90 money for the roads, they don't send nearly enough. It would have to be like 3 times minimum of what they are putting out this year, over $600 million, to even make a good dent in the roads. If 100% of the money goes towards road repair, which it always
Here's a
does.
question about the actual, you said that the administrator is looking at the budget and readjusting some.
Well, that's, my take, I say that because of the email and the meetings and, his administrative report. Um, And getting ready for, you know, hey, if you gotta have a backup plan if the override fails, then, I mean, you can try again in,
Well, the reason I asked about that is per se, is the budget document that he's given us electronically doesn't allow us to end up going in and making any changes on a separate, you know, a separate field. So that we can end up, have the opportunity to take as a committee, to do that, to take and see what those changes are and what the effect is. I mean, there is some, I believe that there is some amount of money within the budget that can be cut, and some that can end up going up. I mean, I don't believe this budget is the fix-all per se, and it should be passed by the town. When we do get the new budget document, are we going to have it electronically, number one? And number two, are we going to be able to take and end up going into that and make changes to that, so that we can end up seeing and have, according to the bylaws,
Yep.
a separate field that we put in to take and end up creating it, so that we can end up seeing what our recommended budget. It may end up being the same budget, it may have some changes, it may have a drastic change. I don't know.
There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to do that, it's what the law calls for.
So, my question would be to take and end up asking the administrator, are we going to get a budget that's, he can lock his cells, as long as he gives us the ability to end up opening them.
Yeah, like we always did before, we had our
Yeah.
recommended on the side. I think that withholding
I believe it
information
was,
or not making available is not fair.
no, I believe it was gonna do that, but I think it's just, and probably part of it's my fault, I may not have,
We need to
I
take
think
and
I
end up,
asked once and I don't think I followed up on it, but.
we need to take and end up checking on that, Mr. Chairman.
I can't lug that book around, it weighs too much.
I believe that was part of the recommendations that Paul made.
Right, it
also
was.
At that point, I think they were accepted and taken at that point, so I do believe that it's probably just an oversight
Yeah,
on
cause, well, I,
somebody's part,
even-
but we do need
I
to get
do,
that, cause that would help.
I remember at one of the meetings, he
Mhm.
said it on a
Yeah.
selectmen's meeting. And I did email it once, but like I said,
Because I looked at the electronic
Right.
budget and I tried to take and end up
below.
looking at it and then putting another column in, stick it, end up saying, okay, what can I end up doing here to take and make some changes on this budget to see what happens?
Mm-hmm.
And because it was password protected, I couldn't do anything. The only thing I could do is a cut and paste on his overall expense budget. And to my surprise, there was some fields that opened up for the February 18th thing. And I ended up playing with that, and as I forward that in and show what everybody, the next level down according to the budget, so it's not on, so you don't have to go to multiple tabs from the thing. It was all on the expense. It didn't break it down to individual paychecks, but it broke it down to individual accounts, and under those accounts, there may be 8 or 10 items under that account. You would have to go to your budget book to look at that.
Well,
So I strongly suggest that we,
I suspect though, as in past years, because the state budget isn't gonna be finalized till after, well, the way they're talking, it'll be July before it comes out. So this thing could stay just like it is right, all the numbers could stay just like it is right now. And come special town meeting in the fall, whenever it's gonna be,
that's when you make your changes.
it's gonna be changed. I don't care, they did, it's being done again this year, making changes to fiscal 18. Gotta add money in. They had to add money into 17. There were, in the annual town report, there's 40-something transfers reported. There's not counting the interdepartmental ones that, the selectmen and us did. That's 64, 62, something like that. I'm thinking it's 40-something, but it's in the back of the 16 annual town report. You can see all of the transfers that were done to cover 16 in the back of the book that were done at town
Oh, yeah.
meeting. I mean, so 16 and 17 and 18, 3 budgets have been, 18 is getting backfilled. It's on a warrant.
Mhm.
It's in this book. They're taking free cash to fix stuff.
Mhm.
So,
That's what we did for 20, 30 years, free cash,
It's,
spent it all. That's why we don't have
but
anything.
they got to, at least they did put some aside, which I'm not happy they didn't put enough, but,
Yep.
but
I'm so-
that's, my thought is that's why they let that 160-something thousand right
Yep.
now float forward. So it's gonna get recertified and available
Again, in
to
this, but,
use, rather than, because if they put it in a general stabilization fund, it would be available,
Yeah, but people
For
have
us-
to vote for it, though.
it would be available for, but it increases the steps that you have to use to
Yeah,
have
you have
access
to
to
ask
that
people.
money.
Mm.
Because you have to vote to put it in, then you would have to ask the people to take it out,
Mm.
and then it would have to be appropriated. This way here, if it just rolls forward into free cash, it's only a one-step process. Still goes to town meeting, but it's only a one-step instead of 3 steps. Vote to put it in, vote to take it out, and then appropriate. This way here, it gets certified, and they they propose appropriations, then it just goes to town meeting for a yes or no vote.
I'm
If you put it in
surprised again
general
in this
stabilization,
year's-
it's
I'm
3
surprised
steps.
again in this year's budget, and we've been warned about this from the DOR as to one-time revenue. There's still some money from the town's budget, as well as when you looked at what the school just did, they ended up using one-time revenue also on their budget,
Well, they
which-
did that to try to save the town.
which is not a recommended practice all the way around.
And if they didn't do that, you'd either be looking at a bigger override
Yeah.
or a bigger increase. And that was also discussed, the town is not doing it, so why are you asking us to do it? And I'm sure there's some fat in that school budget that could be
Oh, I'm
done,
quite
but
sure it
not,
is.
maybe not as much as people think, but there's some there.
Couldn't be
There's
as much
generally
as I
some
think.
everywhere.
Couldn't be as much as I think.
Huh?
I said couldn't be as much as I think.
Yeah,
That was
such-
3 times for the.
Such trust, such trust.
Mm.
No, I'm just being facetious, but, yeah, there's always,
Mm.
Well, I would like to see a budget that is gonna work, that we don't have to backfill. That is just
probably,
living on a credit card.
probably a couple of years.
Credit card mentality's gotta stop. Within your means, everybody else has to,
So,
Funny
well,
how that happens.
not everybody is doing that, though.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Bev, I don't think and I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm just saying, I don't think we could say one government entity is doing that. Because I don't know a town, a city, a state, or a federal, that's living within its means.
No.
Nobody is.
Because
so-
if they
And
don't
there's
have to,
household-
they're
there's
not
house-
going to.
Household budgets that people aren't even living within their means.
No,
That's why,
that's
It's
why they're
not
all
the
in
American
trouble.
way.
that's why everybody's
That's why in
living
credit card
paycheck
get
to
up there.
paycheck,
Right.
because they're, they make $400 and they've spent $401.
Yeah, it was just,
No.
And they gotta grab credit card and pay it. This is not unique to Templeton. That's the biggest thing. It's, in a lot of ways, it's a house of cards. I don't care who, what, when, how, whatever way you wanna shake the numbers. If we lived within our means, if we really wanted to stop using one-time revenue, right? General state aid, you can't use it. It's one-time revenue, because it can change from year to year.
Yeah, it
But-
does.
Okay, but, so we say don't use one-time revenue, but we use it every year.
Lottery money used to depend on that. We're gonna sell T-shirts.
If
Run
you,
Scout Hall, remember that?
So if you took out the general government aid and you took out, local receipts, the biggest thing is the vehicle excise tax. That's a recurring thing, but you don't know the number,
Year for
and it's
year.
always estimated high. If you cut that in half, and you pretend you're not gonna get any state aid, right?
Hmm.
The tax rate right now would be probably about 20. Just to cover the basics. And then when you get the general state aid, save that. That's $1,200,000, $1,300,000.
How did Phillipston, why
But-
do they have so much money in stabilization? 'Cause they don't spend it.
They have a $4 million budget on 1,700 people. They have a tax rate of 1642. We have a town of 8,000, a $13 million budget, and our tax rate's only 30 cents higher than theirs.
Look at all
So-
the money we've thrown away.
So don't say
Just
that,
think how,
you know,
just think how much better off we could have been.
the roads could be good, and we could have good town trucks if the people would've voted for overrides, but they didn't.
You know,
They didn't. Doesn't matter.
I remember a number of years back, there was a small override, just to take and buy a vehicle, for $50,000. And that was like cents, like
Yeah.
less than 10 cents, and it didn't pass. But yet, at that particular time, the school did. There was a slight override for the school, which blew my mind, and saying, it's a much greater thing for the school, but
That passes.
they can end up having equipment so that you can get people to school. It was small amount and it didn't amount to anything as far as,
like fixing the school roof in Templeton Center. Who doesn't fix a roof? It's a town building, you know?
They voted it,
I
they
know.
they weren't asked really to repair the roof, they were asked to replace the roof 4 or 5 different times, from 70-something thousand up to 180,000, and they
Yeah.
all said no.
Yeah.
But then people, they turn around and go, well, we didn't take care of the building.
No kidding. Can't have your cake and eat it too.
I mean, we could've had a lot more money saved away, really, I mean, they could've had that, but,
Oh.
nobody,
Think we got
nobody complained,
300,000 for audits.
nobody complained about the,
DOI didn't say, hey, you didn't do your audits?
nobody, yeah,
noticed?
they did, they held back, free cash and stuff, they wouldn't certify things.
right?
Yeah.
But nobody complained about the low tax rate, but they didn't wanna pay for it, but now they complain about the equipment. Why do you got junk trucks, why do you got this? Because when you were asked to buy it,
didn't
you
wanna
said
do
no.
that. That's why we fixed that cruiser that time, was at that meeting that we sat in we had to go through and redo the budget. I remember Bennett talking about it. I really didn't wanna do that, I wanted to buy a new cruiser, but we didn't have the money.
They had
So
money,
we went and reconditioned the thing. Well, you can recondition the engine, but if all the knobs fall
Well,
off.
they redid the whole cruiser.
Yeah, I know.
Except for the body.
Yeah.
And they got another, it
So-
just died this year
Yeah, so we really got some time out of that. They take a beating.
for 12 grand, they
Yeah. Because we didn't have the money to buy a new one.
got the thing, but anyways. Now that we've beat that horse to.
Yep.
Whipped that one really good. It's just, it is, like Will said, it's a funny thing. You wanna buy an asset for the town. And, well, it's like before, when they had the ambulance receipts reserve fund, and then it was bringing in so much money, they voted it out for whatever reason. All that money would go into the general fund, and then there would be an override question or debt exclusion for, to buy a new ambulance, and people would vote it down. It's, I don't know. And, and towns are funny, the town of Bolton, they don't vote to buy a new thing for the highway department at all. They get all used stuff over there, as people say, and they don't come take care of it, so they ain't buying new stuff. And Bolton's pretty well
And
all
some,
of them.
there's
No,
some
they've got a
communities
lot
that
of-
actually go out to the surplus market for government,
Yeah,
which there's good vehicles to
well,
be.
the state has, the state and the federal government. I'll drive one down one day and I'll show it to you. They have,
So there's really not too much
They
that
have-
we can end up doing this evening as far as the budget until he finalizes that.
like I said, we're not gonna have the warrant that we're actually gonna be making recommendations on until the 10th. So that would be the 11th, our meeting on the 11th, or after that. That's when we're gonna get the final thing. I mean, he said it, selectmen's meetings, he said it to me at a subcommittee meeting, he said it at the budget, and an email, and, because I asked about.
So it's gonna be imperative that we get the,
I asked about the.
the new budget.
Treasurer's.
and the electronic version, so that we have it for our next meeting. On the 11th, that you're gonna be scheduling.
And now the town only really has the choice of just voting this budget down, or, I suppose someone could print out the thing, and they could bring it to town meeting with them and say, hey, I wanna cut, cause we don't have a line item budget anymore. Even though that's another thing town meeting could vote for, the following year's budget format. They
Well,
can vote at
speaking of that,
annual town.
other towns have gone to omnibus budgets, but they actually have the line items underneath it, so people can see what is incorporated in that omnibus budget, and they end up going to the line items. Why this management has refused to do that,
I don't know, because that was our tradition for over 250 years, we have a
Well,
line
whether
item
it's
budget.
tradition or not, other communities have given you, the voters, the opportunity to look at the
Yeah,
individual
your
stuff
money.
in and make changes.
We did actually, they did that in 16 or 17.
It was
I think
about,
the last time Markle did it, it was kind of omnibus present, in the annual town report, it's reported that way, but they did it on the screen, then went down line item by line item,
Yeah.
in case anybody wanted
yeah,
to call something out.
but I mean, the opportunity is at least there, so
But,
they wanna question something, they have the right to do that.
Well, like I
to-
said, voters could just reject the whole,
I think
The
that would
budget
be a
as
good
a
Well, as one
idea.
of our past selectmen has said, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Well,
Let's go
yeah,
back to that.
let's hear how good that theory worked.
uh,
If you read back to when someone was in office.
so,
Yeah.
that's the override and the budget cuts that can, like I said, we're not gonna know. And I think there's one, I can't swear to it, but I thought in here, like I said, the article, a bylaw, concerning 268A. I think they've gotten another new town council's legal opinion on that. It was referenced, and I would have to watch the meeting again to do that, but something about it's they already have the authority. I know they have a different legal opinion than they had to start with. So, okay, the budget versus actual. And it's the most current one that we have, and it's on the table.
Yep.
Um,
I think I copied mine.
the 3/22.
At this point in the year, the percentage of money used should be around 75%. There seems to be a number of accounts, as shown on this BVA, that are much less than that. And of course, there are some that are over.
the question I would have is, especially those that are substantially under,
Okay.
why? That to me is an opportunity to look at this BBA and actually adjust the FY19 budget accordingly.
There's no sense in giving someone a lot of money if they're not gonna use it, or if they don't need it. That's what I feel is that we should have a real budget. I don't want lots of games played. This is what you have for a budget. Can you live with that budget? If you can't, then we gotta do something different. But to, you know, hide money, I don't care for that a whole lot.
The thing you remember is, well, there's a couple things. If you look at their financial policy, they wanna generate a certain percentage out of their spending plan to end up as certified free cash, which is, aimed at funding the capital stabilization fund and the general stabilization fund
Yep.
and the OPEB. And to have monies just to take care of anything that might, have a hiccup. Barring, now, if you wanna cut the expenses on on these things that are at 60% or whatever, you think you can, we can take 2,000 here, we can take 5,000 here, 4,000 here, that's all good and fine. The trick is you walk in, see, it's almost like you wanna be able to eat your cake and have it too. If you're gonna generate your savings and money to fund capital items through free cash, then almost by design, you have to sort of pad or department heads, or you have to fund things in a way that, hey, how much do you think you need? Well, I think I can get away with 9. Well, we'll give you 10 just in case. You never
Yeah.
know.
Well, I can see
Because you wanna
that.
have a little bit more than a little less.
That's acceptable.
But at the end of the year, or right now, you say, well, you're at 60%. If that money, is left over at the end of the year, it's not like it's wasted. It's gonna end up as certified free cash,
Goes
which
in.
is the mechanism that you said you wanna fund this. I guarantee you, if you put overrides in here to fund this general stabilization, like, we want, $400,000, $300,000 for the general stabilization and the capital stabilization fund. You think it will pass? I mean, everybody says they want savings, they want the town to put money away to save, they wanna fund this, they wanna fund that. And the OPEB is the health insurance for all the retirees, and you need to have money put aside to cover those. Where is that money gonna come from? Is the townspeople gonna vote to pay extra in taxes to fund that? And if the answer is generally no, then how are you going to fund them? The way to do that, one way, and you say what you want about it, but if the end result is to generate savings, certified free cash, in other words, that's either an unexpected increase in revenue or an unexpected lowering of expenses.
Yep.
You put $10,000 in there and you say, yep, blah, 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 well, I'm gonna be really good, and boom, boom, and we can get away with this, and, I've only spent, $7,000. Okay, good job. That rolls over and that's available to fund the savings, which is outlined in the financial policy of the selectmen, is how they plan on funding all these things that everybody says they want funded. Well, I banged my head on the table so long, but
Is that
you,
what's wrong?
you either have to, have a little bit more in here and try to have departments be a little tighter during the year to generate. And by the way, you know, there's a local mayor here that has a target, and he likes to go for, you know, hey, we need to get this much in free cash this year. Try somehow to do this. And to me, this is the way, without asking the townspeople, which historically, you know, overrides are iffy. If you wanna have savings and then you come up with a way to fund it. Okay, tell me how you wanna fund it. If you wanna fund this by paying more, you know, each year or every 2 years, whatever, so we can put money in there, fine. But if you don't wanna do that, then how else are you going to fund it by asking for a little bit much, little bits here, there, boom, boom, and try to not spend it all, so it rolls over into free cash, so available later on to fund your savings? We can, yeah, okay, you only spent 60%, and it's June. Well, next year, we're gonna recommend you get less, okay?
Well, if they require less, you know, there's such a thing as honesty.
Okay, but you require less, okay?
Yeah.
All right, and so you give everybody less where you can see you can. You can do it less, you can do it less, you can do it less, okay?
What,
When you're at the end of the year and your free cash goes down, right? Because if you're putting in less and you're spending that, you don't have as much left over,
You know, yeah,
where
the
do you get the
balance.
money for savings? And if that's the approach you wanna take, well, you're not spending all that we're giving you, so we're gonna give you less, cause you obviously don't need it, okay?
one of the,
Then you get at the end of the year, your certified cash, well, last year it was 300,000. This year it's only 110. Well, because we tightened up on this. Because we looked at the numbers and we said, well, you're only using this much, so you don't need that much, we're only gonna give you this much. And you shrink that number, total number down by X amount of dollars.
In a way, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
It's a way to be able to generate. You put what you think you need in here, what they ask for. You ask them to be frugal. In other words, just like the selectman's office, they had $3,000 in June. They could have let that roll and go into free cash, but no, they saw it was there, so they spent it on new desks,
I remember that.
okay? Kind of irresponsible in my thought, but, that could have rolled over and been savings.
That's right.
See, because I mean, you had $3,000 left over, maybe you had 3,000 too much. Well, maybe we would just watched our expenses, and that's what we ended up with. Either way, it's not wasted money. It's what you do with it,
That makes a difference. Yeah, the $3,000
because,
for
like I
that
said,
made me
back in the
happy.
day, when they always used to take whatever free cash was and put it towards the budget. If you needed $10 million and you had $500,000 in free cash, you go to the assessor and say, look, we got $10 million in spending, but we got 500 grand right here on the cash. So what is the tax rate we have to come up with $9,500,000? And if you do that every year, you know, the tax rate doesn't gotta move a lot, because you generate more free cash. And you move money from here to here, and you take 100,000 from the light department, well, now you got 600,000. Now you only you got 10 million you can raise, but we only need to generate 9,400,000. Okay, so we just need a tax rate that'll get us there, not to the 10 million, because we're using this, whatever money we have left every year, we're gonna put it towards there, instead of saving it,
see, one of the things that other communities do
so.
is they have very tight budgets on each department, and they put more money into the emergency reserve so that there is some level of control. Unfortunately, this community has never chosen to do that. Our emergency reserve is basically minimal, and with this particular administration, it's put off till the very end so that he can end up using it where he wants in a transfer, and not necessarily through
Where
the
it
actual
belongs, yeah.
process of having a department come. In the past, he's actually said to department heads, is not to go to the emergency reserve, and he's moved money around. That's wrong. No matter how you cut it, it's wrong.
We don't have much control over that.
I understand
No.
that, but that's not what the actual process is supposed to be.
No, if the highway department has their money, the fire department truck shouldn't be fixed with the highway department money. They should have come to us for a.
Technically, it was a town vehicle maintenance expense.
I know, but.
And the
it
fire
was a
trucks
car
are
or
town
something.
vehicle maintenance,
Yeah, well,
okay?
So it's
Now,
just splitting hairs.
I'm not splitting
They
hairs.
could have come to us and got the
I'm
money
not
that
splitting
they
hairs,
needed.
I'm just saying, it was silly to take money out of the vehicle maintenance fund
That's right.
to pay for a pump, and then have to go and take money out of here, here, and here to put back in the vehicle maintenance fund. That's my problem with it. Not that they took vehicle maintenance fund money to pay for a pump on a town vehicle. It's the fact that you paid for it out of that expense account that didn't have enough in it
That's-
to
yeah,
make it to the
that's
end
right.
of the year.
Right.
Because
That's
you wanted
why,
to save the
you
money in
had the reserve fund sitting there,
That's just
where the
what I
money was.
said. Hello?
except, I mean, it would've almost wiped out the reserve. But my problem was not that they took, town vehicle maintenance fund, cause that's not highway department money, it's town vehicle maintenance, cause they, except I think for the light trucks, they work on everything. Service-wise. So my issue wasn't that they took the vehicle, money out of the town vehicle expense, it's that they took it out of there, and then to make it to the end of the year so they
That's
could
what I-
grease trucks, they moved money back. That was the silly part. It's
That's-
not that they took it out of the town vehicle maintenance fund. That wasn't the part.
But they could have
that
still
tweaked me.
come to the reserve fund and got that money, cause it was an emergency.
But that was my problem with the approach to
I
that.
don't like that game that they play.
They
It's
took
like
money
the
from
shell
here
game. Yeah.
and moved it over here,
No.
and then they had to transfer money out of other
Yeah,
accounts
so you end up
to put
borrowing
it
from
back,
Peter to pay Paul.
They're
rather
not
than
letting
just
town
coming to
government
the
work the way they're
emergency.
supposed to.
Rather than just coming to the
You're
reserve
right.
fund and using it that way.
See, one of the other things I see is, okay, they're gonna do an override for 75 cents, one way, that's what they're gonna be
That's
asking.
what they decided.
But that's not the only thing that's going to hit the tax rate. There is warrant articles here, one for a fire truck, and, okay, it's gonna be spread over 6 years lease, that's gonna hit the tax rate. And the increase for the police department is going to hit the tax rate. I don't think people totally understands that
No, I don't
when you
either.
put all of that together, it's going to be over $1 for at least 6 years.
Yep.
Now, even if they do 40 and I don't believe that they should, 40 years for the police station, I believe that the document that's in place from the DOR, DLS, states that is for that amount of money, should be around 5 years. 5 to 10 years. I'll have to take it, end up going back to that document.
It's worded a little funny, but the fire truck lease, I wanna say they're talking about, the debt that they were paying out of the tax rate for 252. And since that would be paid off,
Yep.
that's where that,
Money's coming
instead of
from.
being available for everything else, it would just, 95,000 of that would go for a fire truck lease.
Yeah, the $92,000 that from 252 will be utilized for the
Lease of the
engine
fire truck.
3 fire truck lease for 6 years with $25,000, I believe, put forward initially as a buy down for the lease amount to get it down to that amount, so that it is 92,000 per year.
Yeah.
So there is no, per se, override for that amount.
Yeah, there's no debt exclusion for
Right.
that. It's coming out of something, that was coming out of the tax rate anyway. It was just like a money that would have become available to cover the general fund budget.
Just gonna use that instead.
But instead of going for another debt
Yeah.
exclusion,
Yeah.
And
the budget will continue to be tight for that 5 years. But again, do you think a debt exclusion or an override, either way, do you think one would pass for a new fire truck? You know, it's like the highway department. Me, all these years I've listened to the highway department come in and say, well, our trucks are bad and, you know, they're old and, you know, we do what we can with what we got. If they were that bad them past years, just redline them.
You wouldn't be running right
Deadline
now.
them, just deadline them. Sorry. How come my road ain't plowed? Got no trucks. What do you mean? They're all unsafe. That's what you do. Don't hold it together with baling wire and duct tape and say, oh yeah, see, we're getting the job done. If they are truly that bad, then you get rid of them. But then I see loaders that in 2012, we were told
We're no good.
they were worn out, unreliable, cost too much money to fix them, so we need to get a new one. Well, they bought one out of Chapter 90 money. They bought a new loader. Did any of those too old, unreliable, too worn out, too costly to repair disappear? No. They kept on using them till this year. One finally died and they finally did say, it's out of service.
Yeah.
So when you tell people that and they buy a new one, I don't care the funding source, you know, per se, but I mean, regardless of how you funded it, you went and bought a new one because you said you needed one.
It's either good or
And
it's not.
the two ones that you said needed to be replaced, you keep running them for another 6 years? And you think the people are gonna trust you with an override or debt exclusion, cause you tell them, well, you need a new piece of equipment, or you need this? You know, hello? But anyway, with the fire truck lease, and that may require some, clarification, but I believe that would, to avoid a debt exclusion, it's coming out of money that was being taken out of the tax rate to pay off, money that was spent on 252. For the engineering, all that stuff work that was done out of that original 1.9 million that was borrowed.
Just
And
pennies.
whatever wasn't spent was sent back, but the money that was spent, you have to account for it.
That's not what it says in the,
Huh?
it says vote to raise and appropriate. In the warrant article. Doesn't say anything about the other.
For the fire truck?
Yeah,
to pay for the first year of a lease for the equipped fire truck.
to pay for the first year of a 6-year lease.
Right. Like I said, that would require.
See, that's, I think this is what they're trying to appropriate right here, the $25,000.
Yeah. So,
Or is that an either or?
but again, when we get the final, this is a draft, so it, you know, it can change by, you just have to look at the wording when we get, the final.
I don't know, in a
What,
way,
what number is
I'd
that?
like. Mr.
That's
Chairman,
28,
Article 28?
yeah, Article 28.
I'd like to see our town government have an overhaul.
Yeah.
We need a DPW, a real one, with the water department and the sewer together.
The term raise bothers me.
I have to see,
It says
You'll
raise
have
and
to-
appropriate.
well,
Doesn't
yeah,
say
but you'll
anything
have to
about debt
see,
exclusion.
you'll have to see the motion, what the motion is.
Right, it's just,
Big difference.
And the police station does say it's a prop 2.5 debt exclusion for the $1.5 million more. So that makes the building basically $2.5 million.
That's not what people voted for. That was a odd thing to do.
When you have this type of article, that you're going for more, and the same time you're going for an override, that brings a lot of questions to the voters' minds.
Should.
And when I look at,
One is temporary and one is full-time, forever.
and when I look at the budget to actual, and I see a number of accounts that are not even close to the 75%, I wonder, why did we put that much money into that? I mean, the people, I've heard comments about, you have a part-time administrator. You do not have a full-time administrator. And how did we end up with a management employees, you know?
What's he do?
That's a question.
Makes copies? Yeah.
I mean, I can't, as I told the individual,
$40,000, I can make lots of copies.
as I told the individual, I can't answer that. You'd have to ask the administration why we have a management fellow at $49,000. The town never voted for a management fellow.
It's a lot of money.
I mean, I haven't kept track of what he's doing. I know he's done the meal thing, but
He doesn't
when you
get,
have those type of things that are out there, there are people that are paying attention, whether they come to meetings or not. And when you have an override, they may not come to annual town meeting, but they're going to speak at the ballot box.
oh, that's when they can do
The ballot
that.
box is where the override, the debt exclusions are gonna happen. There are some of those items that need to be made to happen, that aren't gonna happen because of what we have in the budget and what they have done without going to the townspeople. There's still issues like that are happening.
I could see if this, apparently he's a nice guy, if he would take part in the discussion and sit at the table with the grown-ups. They got him stuck in the back row. That's a lot of money to pay somebody. I can make copies for $40,000. I can make a lot for 50.
I made a bunch of copies for free.
Yeah, what a guy, huh?
What are you talking about?
Really?
Taking money out of my boy's mouth. I spent $80 on him on groceries today.
Oh, mine's gonna be like that too.
I'm serious as a heart attack.
Oh, I'm sure.
I spent about 23 on myself.
Yeah.
So I bought a leash and I bought a.
And he'll eat better.
I bought some beans and rice and stuff and some ice cream and a half gallon of milk, and I spent $80 on my boy. And you're right, he's gonna get some ice cream. He's gonna nibble a little rice and.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wait till my girl meets your boy.
I can't say on camera what happened the last time my boy met a girl. But when the meeting's over with, I'll tell you. They're funny as hell, too. Long story short, the girl showed my bear who the boss was. Turn around, bear. I'm the boss.
Oh, that's hilarious.
That was funny.
Oh, yeah, that'd be a
Girl's
laugh.
such a baby.
That's
She'd
been a
lay-
laugh.
she'd
Easter
lay on her-
Sunday.
Yeah.
she'd
Oh,
lay on her
priceless.
back.
My brother's father-in-law, he says,
Hey,
That's funny.
what's going on with your dog, Jeff? I looked out the window and I said, Bear, I gotta start beating you more.
Don't take your plow off, Bennett.
I'm not.
It's gonna snow again.
2 more times.
Jeez, oh, man. I stayed in Hawaii. What the hell would I come back for? I could have room for that girl in the tent.
There you go.
You know, one of the departments that hasn't grown per se, budget-wise, last year to this year, is the assessors.
They are good. They are good. They put in for what they need for their paperwork and their maps and all that stuff, and, you know, she doesn't fool around. This is what I need and this is what I spend. And that's the way it should be. When Hardwick ran into financial problems, they took their senior center and they had everyone go to Barry because they couldn't float the boat by themselves. You know,
Well, they made the hard decision as to what they were gonna do.
the day of reckoning's coming because it's kinda like if I said to the Historical Society, I'm gonna grow a plant for you for the entryway to your building, and they said, go ahead. And I went home, they voted for it. So I went home and I planted this plant, and the plant, gee whiz, I had a problem. It's 10 feet tall. Do I go back to the historical and say, gee whiz, my plant's too big, maybe you gotta add on to the building? You know, because you voted for it, now you've got it, you gotta figure out how to use it? That's kind of what we have here. We have some excess.
Well, I know that when I was in the private sector, when they came down and said that you are not going to end up increasing your budget, and they made sure you didn't have any raises in it, and they said no raises, this is the budget. It didn't make any difference what was going on. You didn't give raises out.
But I don't think most businesses give raises every year. Not if there's not the money to do it.
This is the 19th.
Today's what?
No, okay, so, does anyone have anything particular, question on the budget versus actual?
Yeah, town accountant, employee support at 97%. Supplies, they're at 82%. Fire and EMS, purchases of services, 85%. Under other, it's 85% of the budget. I mean, I'm only bringing ones that are really high. There is others that are above the 75%. The only one I can understand that should be way above is the snow and ice.
And it is. Well,
Even then, there's
we
individual.
don't have- I don't have the 18 book, but I do have, so, you could go in here.
Did I hear him
And
say
some of
the other
these-
night at the meeting that he was going to take money from the highway department? People want their roads fixed, I don't understand, because he was gonna leave the senior center and the library alone. That was that meeting that they had a couple nights ago. It's just, how do they think they're gonna bleed the highway department to death and expect anything's gonna get done at all?
Well, actually, in the highway department, there's, other than some coal patch and stuff, there's not much in there to, you know, repair the roads. That's what the chapter 90
think-
money is supposed to be for, and a good majority of that is
These-
tied up with the Route 68 engineering costs and stuff. That's how they're paying for that out there. Because again, go back and look at the annual
I
town
know.
reports, there were questions for additional money to fix roads, and people voted it down,
Yeah, well, I think
So-
right about now, they've changed their mind.
you know?
They're almost impassable.
Personnel, let's see, I'll try to get a handle on what this,
It's the beauty of a ditch on South Main Street. Yeah, where
Okay,
Elwood used
so-
to live.
the town account, employee support, what was covered under, I don't have 18, but I do have 19, and I believe that you have Abrams boot camp training, Abrams municipal law, conferences, summer conference, mileage for training. This is what's under employee support.
Supplies.
And I suspect, well, no, the reason for the, it could be at 97% is, a lot of this training could have already happened and been paid for. And there will be no, you know, $77, I don't know what that's gonna pay for, maybe some mileage to go someplace.
Mhm.
But I'm just assuming here, but, since a lot of this is training stuff and take certification tests and everything, it's possible that all of that stuff has already happened.
Excuse
And
me.
the next 3 months, there's nothing, in other words, the money set aside, the purposes have already been met. There's nothing, there's no more training gonna happen in the last 3 months. The only thing I would, you know, there's $77 there if she drives somewhere to, would be for mileage, but again, when you see like 97%, you have to go look and see what's covered underneath that. And again, I'm thinking that all of the things that
Talking.
employee support was gonna cover have happened and have been paid. Just like some of them are almost, you know, are real low, you know, 40%, 30%, something like that. Are things that are done like quarterly or
Like the
or
recreation or
biannually, and just
summer.
haven't been, if you'll look at the end of the year expenditure and you'll see, boom, you know, it's dropped down because it's paid.
But I'm not saying that there's anything wrong, I'm just saying that
I know, it
to
does
to
look,
look at the next level down, you really need to look at stuff like that and say, why is that particularly happening?
and, cause I know in the past, we've had questions about why things were high or 100% gone at, you know, the first month, because they take that and they pay, you know, right off the get.
That's understandable when that happens,
You know,
but I'm sure that there are some that are in the 80% bracket that needs further investigation to understand why it's that high. I mean, there could be a very legitimate reason why it's that high.
and again, like assessor supplies, I can see what's in supplies, but, that's a lot of the, sending out the bills and sending out, informational stuff, and we're basically in the last quarter, so that's, but I know these things have come up before, and we've asked, and they've come back and go, oh, that makes sense. Let's see.
I do have the 18 budget, I just,
Yeah, it's got 500 listed straight.
maybe
out,
we should
supplies.
end up, looking at the BVA at the next meeting and have some level of
see,
drill down as
office
to what that
Supplies
really
is office
entails.
supplies, and I believe a lot of that would be.
I don't have the 18 budget right here,
Yeah.
but I could end up putting it on and bring
But
it
like
up.
for the assessor supplies is at, that's only like at 36%. The other is like, almost gone. So I think if you look deep, or you take time and look, you find that, there's generally a good reason why it's just the way things are done, of why there's, you're at the end of the year and there's, 80% left. It's like, huh? Yeah, see other postage. So we have other, and it's like $600, and that's what it is for 19 for postage, for sending out all the tax bills and stuff for the last quarter. So that, again, that makes sense. It'd be at 81%, because most of their work has already been done. They go, go in spurts. Mail out first of the year, you mail them out, the next set of tax bills, and when the next one goes out, it'll be coming out of 19.
I heard somebody say the selectmen say something about only sending tax bills out twice a year. I think that's gonna hurt a lot of people. It's too much money for them to come up with. Not everybody plans like that.
Well, they may send the bill out, but it's done quarterly.
Huh?
They could send them out twice a year, but they end up incorporating 2 quarters. So that it cuts the cost of mailings
I
down.
know, but
Right.
I like the idea.
Again, it's.
What I found interesting here too is if you go down to,
You do something to save money, or you
Yeah, I
gotta
know.
increase, cost of
Right.
postage
But we
goes
should
up,
ask
envelopes
people.
and
They should
everything,
ask people too.
what I found out interesting here, if you go down to the debt, the short-term interest is overspent already, and we're only 3/4 of the way through the year.
Wow.
Let me see.
Potentially, that's another
Yeah.
account that comes toward the end of the year, that end of the year transfers will have to have place, because I don't see the principal
Well,
in
what page is that on?
the regular debt interest is not being, I mean, those look like they're in line. And if we have interest on the short-term borrowing, that's gonna continue on.
Where's it at? I just saw it. There it is.
Yeah, insurance and benefits is right in line what I would expect it to be at this time of the year. Overall, it's 73%.
Library is, boom, 79, 70, 66. All right. But that's why that end of the year transfer mechanism is in place.
Yep.
As long as everything is balanced by July 15th. Somebody was off on their guess by a couple of grand. It's like I guesstimated 4 tons of wood pellets this year. I used 2.
It's a little off.
Hey, I wasn't
You may
guess-
be doing it, I estimate.
Would you have
wasn't-
the heat on?
Oh, warm as it can be.
We used, I don't know how many tons.
I don't, I don't I don't, you know, when I'm at home, I don't, if I have to have clothes on, be, you know, something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I gotta have a hat and jacket and sweater on to sit at home to have a cup of coffee, something wrong.
Yeah, I don't do that
Something
either.
really wrong.
Yeah,
Mm.
You know, if I gotta wear, you know, long johns and a sweatshirt and sweatpants to go to bed at night, something's wrong. I done that already. I slept outdoors.
They didn't
Bear
even
don't
plan-
like it, but Bear, that's why Bear can go on the floor.
well, I think we should probably take a look at the BVA at the next meeting a little more in depth,
All right.
rather than spend
Yep, no point.
some
in-
more time to
Maybe
this
we'll
evening.
get more people here.
Well, we'll have more members here.
And since the scribe income is to take, end up putting off acceptance of the meeting minutes until,
Well, we can, I was hoping he would come, but he didn't come, so, I'll just, if we gotta make any changes, I'll email them to him. Next agenda, so.
so you wanna go through the meeting minutes, Mr. Chairman, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, to, accept the minutes for February 21st, 2018. Okay.
I'd like a nickel for every time that picture was taken. Or those pictures.
Okay,
Main lighthouse.
does anybody wanna make a motion for the minutes, or you wanna wait till the next meeting?
I'll make
I'll take and make a motion that we end up tabling until the next meeting.
Okay.
I'll
We give-
second that.
Give an opportunity for the scribe to be here if there's any questions. I mean, I like to take and end up seeing, at least giving him the opportunity to input to the,
Okay, motion to table February 21st minutes to our next meeting.
I second it,
Made and seconded. So on the motion, Bev,
yes.
Will,
yes,
Bob,
Yes.
that's yours.
It's
Okay. I'm gonna put it on some papers here if you would.
Okay.
'Cause I got plenty of them.
Here you go. 3. All right. So we did a pre-town meeting date for May 2nd, correct?
Yep, correct.
The May 19th, 2018 annual town meeting, our report and stuff like that. We'll discuss at the pre-town meeting. Good enough. So, that would be everything on the agenda. So unless there's anything else,
No, it's call it a night.
do all the boys and girls want to go home?
Yep,
Make a motion to adjourn.
I second
Second.
it. No, third it.
Okay. And the second was,
Well,
all right, all those in favor of adjourning?
aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Opposed?
Come on, it's gotta be you.
done at 8